Welcome to LawNext PR, this podcast where we put a spotlight on the latest news coming out of the legal tech industry. This is Bob Ambrogi, and in each sponsored episode of LawNext PR, I interview a legal tech company about its latest news and developments. Today, we're talking with the company Litera about its recent announcement of a global integration of Litera Compare with Google Workspace. Joining me to discuss this and tell us all the details is Kenneth Pechous, Global Head, Business Development and Alliances at Litera. Ken, welcome to the show.
Hey, Bob. Thanks for having me. Really excited to be here.
So I gave a little bit of a tease here of the news, but why don't you give us some more details on what it is that you've announced here?
Yeah, Bob, thanks again for the opportunity. And we're extremely excited here at Litera to announce that we've built an integration with Google Workspace, which will include Google Docs and Google Drive in the initial release. And so, our Compare product, which is trusted by over 15,000 firms, legal departments of corporations globally for over 30 years, is now available in Google Workspace. So now legal teams can perform all their precise document comparing, redlining without having to leave Google Docs or Google Drive. And of course, it's all AI enabled with agentic AI guiding these legal professionals through their workflow processes.
This includes the Lito AI as well, right?
Yeah. Lito is at the front of everything that we do. And so when customers get this integration, and again, these are joint, Google Drive / Litera customers Compare, they automatically get Lito included. And again, that's our agentic AI guide to help legal professionals expedite and be very efficient and precise and accurate with their document comparisons and redlining functions.
And I know what Compare does, you know what Compare does, but if there's anybody watching this right now who maybe isn't familiar with the product before, can you give us kind of a quick description of what Compare does?
Yeah, Bob, great question. And let me give you a particular use case that's available now in the integration. So let's say that I'm an attorney at a corporation and I'm working on behalf of a client and I have to do some document comparisons. It might be a merger and acquisition play. I can go right now into my Google Drive and right click on the drive and bring up the relevant documents into my view that I need to compare and redline. It might be several different versions of the same document. It might be documents that we're trying to merge into one master terms and conditions. So as a functioning attorney, I bring this all up into one workspace, and through AI, I'm able to go through those red lines and those edits all in one panel or one pane and go through all the processes that I need to get to a next revision of that document. And a use case that we like to, purvey here is that usually sometimes these instances can take up to 5 hours to do. We've reduced that through AI Lito and the integration of Compare to Google Workspace down to less than 5 minutes in some cases. So very precise and very accurate. So it's all about productivity from a lawyer or a legal person's perspective.
So of course, Compare has long been available for Word and in Outlook. When I saw this news, one of the questions I immediately wondered was how widespread is the use of Google Workspace in the legal profession? What's your sense of that?
Yeah, Bob, that's a great insight. So traditionally, the AmLaw 200, the largest law firms, in the world have been very Microsoft centric. They just grew up using Microsoft tools, of course, Word and the entire MS 365 suite. And, frankly, that's where Litera got its growth from. And that's where we focused our development and our product features. But if you look at the TAM, right, the total addressable market for legal tech software, specifically, in this case, Litera Compare, there's a huge untapped market in corporations, so think about tech firms, think about manufacturing, big pharma. A lot of these companies are standardized on the Google suite. And so we look at that as an opportunity for us to land and expand and grow, our penetration into those marketplaces. And because we have such a great partner in Google, they've worked very closely with us along building out this integration. We feel there's a lot of synergy in the marketplace for their sales organizations and our sales organization to combine efforts and co-sell and things like that. So the market is ready for us, and we see this as a huge expansion opportunity for us. That's the main use case and reason why we put the engineering effort and the product development effort into building this integration.
I take it then that's more on the corporate legal side than the law firm side. perhaps? Are you also seeing law firms begin to use Google Workspace at all?
Yeah, absolutely. It's starting to become a more balanced approach. And not only that on the Word document or versus versus Google Docs side of the play, but also the infrastructure, the hyperscaler marketplace. You're seeing a lot of Google Cloud expansion to match that of Azure, and so you're seeing that play in the marketplace. And so a lot of companies are looking at the best opportunity for their companies to get the best technology, the right place at the right time at the right cost. And so, yeah, we're starting to see that happen within traditional law firms. But you nailed it when you said, corporations. So think about in-house counsel, legal operations, and in some regards, universities, law schools that are very standardized on Google. Big opportunity for Litera to grow in those spaces.
Great. You mentioned that this integration is with Google, with Workspace, with Drive, and with Documents. Does that suggest that there may be further Google Workspace integrations, such as with Gmail? Or
Yeah, absolutely. With Gmail, really across the entire Google Workspace suite. And this first use case that we've built out is more of a land and expand kind of mindset. And so we want to get some wins and some traction around the Google Drive and the Google Docs side of the equation, but Google, Sheets, across the board in the suite. And then even expanding further potentially into Google Cloud Platform, other areas within Google where there might be some, opportunities for our organizations to partner. But yeah, like I said, land and expand, prove out this first use case, which we're seeing a lot of traction in the marketplace already. We're very excited about, and then we can take it from there.
so I know you touched on this a little bit in your earlier remarks, but I wonder if you could talk a little bit more about kind of what's the pain point or the workflow pain point that this addresses for legal teams.
Yeah, number one, it's productivity and velocity. You know, Gone are the days, I believe, or the honeymoon of just checking the box for AI enabled workflow tools that legal firms use to better their opportunity around streamlining contracting processes. Now it's all about how do lawyers spend quality time at the next level, and then taking that time and to actually then do what lawyers do. Instead of just spending time and reviewing and editing documents, they're out actually doing the practice of law. And so it's freeing up their time to focus on their clients. And I think that's the big use case here. It's all about outcomes for the clients of the law firms, and the clients, of the corporation's in-house counsel. So if you think of a in-house counsel team, their clients are usually the lines of business within that corporation to get contracts out more quickly, to negotiate potential mergers and acquisitions. So it's all about rapid deployment, using AI, and streamlining efficiencies. That's the number one pain point in the marketplace. And of course, the people that, hire law firms, they're looking for those outcome driven results. And so I think, again, to reiterate, gone are the days of just testing the waters with AI to check the box that you've done that. Companies are looking for real hard, fast results that are most importantly reliable and accurate. And I think that's been a little bit of the apprehension is, can we rely on these AI models, agentic or large learning models, to make sure that the work that our attorneys provide for our clients is accurate and can be, battle tested in the courts, things like that. So yeah.
Then just to expand more on another point you touched on earlier is the fact that those who use Compare with Google Workspace are also going to get access to Lito. So how do Compare and Lito work together? How do they complement each other or integrate with each other?
Yeah. So at the core of the current versions of Compare, which is in the cloud, we've built, our foundational AI model into the actual tool. And so when you open it up, you automatically see the AI agent Lito in your purview within your screen. And you can ask Lito questions on demand. Lito will automatically peruse the work that you're actually doing within the Compare tool in a Google Workspace, and then make suggestions as you're moving along. And you can actually just have it do all of the editing work for you, depending on how far you want to take it. So it is that, it's your best friend right there. It comes, like I said, baked into the core of the product going forward. And it's GA once you buy the software. There's no additional, script that you have to download. There's no additional SKU that you have to buy. It's all baked into the product.
Um, Somebody watching this might think, well, if I'm in Workspace, I've already got Google Gemini. Why would I need Lito or some other product out there?
That's a great question. And, my observation is that, there's a lot of competitive AI technologies out there in any given platform. In fact, I was at the Google Next conference and, Gemini, of course, was the main talk of the town, but then you had big companies like, Anthropic with a gigantic booth presence and walking the floors of the show. So I think there's some overlap. There's a lot of room for those technologies to complement each other. I don't think there's ever going to be just a clear cut one winner. And if you look at the way we're building our AI technology, some of it's native and some of it is, from an OEM perspective, leveraging those big AI native foundational platforms to build it into our technology. So, people do ask that question, but if you look at the ecosystem, there's absolutely use cases where they overlap.
So if somebody is interested in implementing this integration between Compare and Google Workspace, how do they do that? What do they have to do?
Yeah. So, well, of course, there's the commercial aspect of it. They have to procure the Compare licenses, which, by the way, this integration, which is a SKU that will be available on the Google Marketplace, will be available for download once you purchase the license key for Compare. So automatically, like I said, customers will get that part of the equation, the AI enablement within Compare. And for companies that are outside of the Google Workspace, it's the same thing. Compare has Lito baked into it. So it's really
So
easy.
whether they're already a Litera customer or want to become one, they'd first go through that commercial aspect, and then it would be available to them within the Workspace marketplace.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the way to go. We're working on doing the market penetration and the go-to-market enablement for both Google on the Workspace side, their revenue generating organization, and the same thing with our revenue generating organization. So we're combining efforts to get the word out on the street and to train our respective sales forces on how to position the solution.
Yeah. And is there any are there any conditions as to document type? I mean, Google Doc, Word Doc, does it matter at all in terms of using this?
Yeah, it really doesn't matter. In fact, you can have Word docs in Google Drive,
Yeah.
and they be brought up from the right click, capabilities within Compare, so that it doesn't really matter what kind of document. And that goes, for Excel, that goes for Sheets, that goes for slides, all the above. The whole Google Workspace will be enabled through this technology.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it sounds like a really significant and major expansion for Compare. I've been
Without
peppering you with questions. What else would you like listeners to know about this new integration?
Yeah, well, obviously AI is, the hot topic of the world, front and center. You go to these big events like Google Next and you see just a myriad of new sponsors and vendors that didn't exist 3 or 4 years ago. And going back to my earlier comment, the way we look at AI here at Litera is that, we have the mindset that the honeymoon is over, within the legal space. Law firms, in-house counsel at companies, they're no longer just checking the box, like I said, and going through the motion of buying an AI solution because it's what their customers demand or what their board of directors demands. They really need to see true time savings and monetary savings by using these tools. The ROI is a little bit hard to measure right now, but we feel that the way we've taken AI and rolled it into almost our entire product suite, there's a few things that are coming along. This is really the way that we're going to help customers take and leverage that 30 years of deep business rule expertise that Litera brings to the table, coupled with a really smart and efficient AI strategy to bring the technologies to the customer that are going to drive ROI, cost savings, which will make law firms more sticky, if you will, and expand within their customer and their client bases. That is the takeaway that I would love everybody to understand. And again, traditional law firms, Microsoft shops, traditional corporations with in-house counsel and legal operations, most standardized on the Google platform. Huge opportunity for us to grow. And then to your point earlier, about law firms are also looking at the Google suite as well, and they're expanding into that technology. So really, to us, it was something that we had to do. And Google has been a fantastic partner along the way. I know they're very bullish on the relationship as well. And we're going to take this first use case and expand it from there. But we're very excited, like I said, about where we're going.
Well, it's exciting news, and I really appreciate your coming on the show and telling us about it today.
Yeah. Bob, thanks a lot. We really appreciate the opportunity to get the message out there. And if there's follow up from this conversation that you have with me, please go ahead and ping me. I'd be more than happy to talk about the solution in general. And hopefully, if we meet again sometime in the future, I can talk about all the wins that we've had in this.
To do that. But as for those watching this recording or listening to this recording, should they just go, if they don't already have a relationship with Litera and they want to find out more, how do they do that?
Yeah, you know what? I'll being the head of business development and alliances, I'll put my info out there, and if people want to reach out to me directly, that's fantastic. And my email is kenneth.pechous@litera.com, or you can find me on LinkedIn.
Ken, thanks so much. It's been a pleasure
Yeah,
to
thank
talk
you,
to you.
Bob. Really appreciate the time. Like I said, have a great afternoon.
Yeah, and that's it for today's episode of LawNext PR. We hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please subscribe wherever you get your podcast, or you can find us on YouTube at LawNext_PR. This is Bob Ambrogi. Until next time, thanks for joining us.